Tear this garbage down. Right now. Get these kids out of my way. Before I bury them. The roar of the diesel engine was deafening. Thick black smoke poured from the exhaust stack of the massive yellow excavator. It was a brutal, ugly sound that tore through the quiet mountain air. Elena stood her ground. She was 24 years old, making barely enough to survive. But she wasn't going to let them destroy the only safe haven these children had. The border town was a forgotten place. For these 20 kids, this crumbling wooden building wasn't just a school. It was their only chance at a future. The mine owner, a heavy-set man named Vance, leaned out of his luxury truck. He wore an expensive suit that looked ridiculous, covered in the red dust of the quarry. He had bribed the right officials, he had the paperwork, and he had absolutely no patience for a stubborn teacher and a bunch of poor kids. He signaled the operator. The excavator's massive steel bucket lifted into the air, casting a dark shadow over the schoolhouse. The children screamed. Elena closed her eyes, bracing for the impact. But the impact never came. Instead, the engine suddenly idled. A man had walked directly between the machine and the school. He was tall, wearing faded jeans, a simple t-shirt, and heavy hiking boots. But what stopped the operator wasn't the man's size. It was the fact that he was holding the hand of a little boy. No older than 6, the man didn't look scared. He looked completely, terrifyingly calm. The future of these children isn't something you can buy with dirty money. If you believe that a good father will always stand up for what's right, leave a comment saying, "I believe in a father's love and justice." Vance threw his truck door open and stormed over. His face was purple with rage. He looked at the stranger, taking in the dusty clothes and the cheap canvas backpack. "Are you out of your mind, buddy?" Vance spat. "This is an active demolition site. Get your kid and get out of here, before I have you arrested for trespassing." The stranger didn't immediately answer. Instead, he knelt down in the dirt, right in front of the giant machine. He looked his son in the eyes. "Hey, champ," he said softly. "Remember what we talked about this morning? About how we don't run away when things look scary?" The little boy nodded, his eyes wide but trusting. "Yeah, Dad. We stand our ground." "That's right. You're doing great. Just cover your ears for a minute, okay? It's going to be loud." The stranger stood up. He was a man who believed in leading by example. He believed in teaching his son that true wealth wasn't about the car you drove or the money you hoarded, but the courage you showed when it mattered most. He was the kind of guy who didn't just talk about being fearless, he lived it. Every single day. He turned his attention back to Vance. "I don't think you're going to be knocking anything down today," the stranger said. His voice was conversational, almost friendly, but it carried a sharp, undeniable edge. Elena rushed forward, her voice shaking. "Please, sir. You have to help us. They're trying to take the land. These kids have nowhere else to go, to learn." Vance laughed a harsh, ugly laugh. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of crumpled $20 bills. He threw them into the dirt, near Elena's feet. "There's your budget for the year, sweetheart. Buy them some brooms. They're going to need to learn how to sweep my floors anyway, once I build the new processing plant. If you're sick of seeing arrogant people use their wealth to crush the vulnerable, hit that subscribe button to see how true justice is served." The stranger's expression didn't change, but his eyes went cold. He looked at the money in the dirt, then back up at Vance. "You seem to think that piece of paper in your pocket gives you the right to do whatever you want," the stranger said. "I have a signed demolition order from the county commissioner." Vance sneered. "I own this mountain. I own the rocks, the dirt, and the air above it. Now, move." The stranger shook his head. Slowly, You might want to check the federal zoning laws regarding educational structures on disputed border territories. Vance rolled his eyes. I don't have time for a lecture from a homeless hiker. Operator. Move them out of the way. The operator hesitated. The stranger reached into his faded backpack. Vance took a step back, suddenly nervous. But the stranger didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a heavy, matte black satellite phone. It wasn't a standard consumer model, it was a customized, military-grade encrypted device. The stranger didn't look at Vance. He didn't look at the excavator. He looked up at the peaks of the surrounding mountains, his eyes locking onto the rusted, broken cell towers that had been abandoned years ago. He punched a few keys on the phone. He wasn't calling for the police. He was sending a direct coordinate ping to a private satellite, orbiting 300 miles above the Earth. You have exactly 1 minute to get off my property, Vance screamed. His patience completely gone. I am warning you. The stranger finally looked at Vance. A small, confident smile played on his lips. I don't think you realize what property you are actually standing on, he said quietly, and right on cue. Vance's expensive smartphone began to ring. Vance stared at his ringing phone. It was a private number. He usually ignored those. But something in the stranger's calm demeanor made his stomach churn. He swiped the screen and brought the phone to his ear. Yeah, Vance here, he barked, trying to sound authoritative. The voice on the other end didn't belong to his usual local contacts. It was the frantic, trembling voice of his lead corporate attorney back in the city. Vance, you need to shut down the machines right now. The lawyer stammered. What are you talking about? I'm 2 minutes away from flattening this shack. I've got the county permits right here. The lawyer took a sharp breath. Those permits were just revoked by the Federal Land Management Office 3 minutes ago. Vance, listen to me very carefully. The entire mountain ridge, including your quarry, was just bought out. Vance felt a cold sweat break out on the back of his neck. Bought out? By who? Global Horizon Telecom, the lawyer said. They invoked a federal education infrastructure clause. They're building a national broadcast array to provide free internet to the border territories. It's a billion-dollar project. Vance, and their CEO, is personally overseeing the final site acquisitions. Today, Vance slowly lowered the phone from his ear. He looked at the stranger, standing in the dirt. The man in the faded jeans and cheap t-shirt was currently helping his little boy tie his shoe. You, Vance whispered, his voice completely drained of its previous arrogance. You're Arthur Sterling. Arthur finished tying the knot and stood back up, brushing the dust off his knees. I told you to check the zoning laws, Arthur said casually. Educational structures on disputed territories get priority if a federal utility steps in. And as of 5 minutes ago, my company owns the utility rights to this entire zip code. End of process. Vance's face went from purple to a sickly shade of gray. But my equipment, my investment, he stammered. I've poured millions into this site. Arthur reached down and picked up one of the crumpled $20 bills Vance had thrown at Elena. He walked over and tucked it neatly into the breast pocket of Vance's expensive suit. Consider that your severance package, Arthur said. My legal team will be sending you the bill for the ecological damage your mining operation has caused. I suggest you tell your driver to pack up that excavator before I have it seized as collateral. Arthur protected the children's dream of learning and stood up for Elena. If you believe that a good father will always stand up for what's right, leave a comment saying, I believe in a father's love and justice. Vance didn't say another word. He turned, stumbled slightly on the uneven ground, and practically ran back to his luxury truck. He yelled something to the excavator operator, who immediately killed the engine and started climbing out of the cab. Within 5 minutes, the massive yellow machine was tracking backward, retreating down the mountain path. The roar of the diesel engine faded, leaving behind a stunning, peaceful silence. The children, who had been huddled together in fear, slowly peeked out from behind the wooden walls of the schoolhouse. Elena stood completely still, staring at Arthur, as if he had just fallen from the sky. "You're a billionaire?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Arthur chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking a little shy. "I'm just a guy who knows a lot about cell towers," he said. "And a dad who wants his son to see what real courage looks like." He gestured toward Elena, standing in front of a bulldozer for these kids. "That's the bravest thing I've seen in a long time. Miss Elena, you didn't need my help, you were already holding the line." Elena felt tears well up in her eyes. But for the first time in months, they were tears of profound relief. Over the next few weeks, the dusty, forgotten border town experienced a miracle. The mining equipment was completely cleared out. In its place, fleets of construction trucks arrived, bearing the Global Horizon logo. They didn't just build a cell tower, they laid a foundation for a brand new, state-of-the-art educational center. Arthur stayed in town to oversee the project personally. He traded his hiking boots for work boots, often carrying lumber and mixing concrete, right alongside the local crews. His son became the unofficial mascot of the construction site, running around with a tiny yellow hard hat. And every evening, when the tools were put away, Arthur would sit on the porch of the old schoolhouse with Elena. They talked about education, about the future, and about the quiet beauty of the mountains. They found a shared language in their desire to leave the world a little better than they found it. 6 months later, the old wooden shack was nothing but a memory. A beautiful, modern school building, made of glass and locally sourced timber, stood in its place. The classrooms were equipped with the latest technology, powered by the massive, sleek communication array on the ridge. But the most important event of the year wasn't the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the school. It was a quiet, intimate gathering, held in the school's new courtyard, under a canopy of mountain pine trees. Elena wore a simple, elegant, white dress. Arthur wore a tailored suit that actually looked like it belonged on him, though he still had that same gentle, humble smile. Arthur's son stood proudly beside them, holding a small velvet box. As they exchanged vows, the children of the border town watched from the front rows, cheering loudly when Arthur finally kissed his bride. He had come to the mountains, looking for a place to build a tower. He ended up finding a place to build a home. Resilient fathers never walk alone on their journey to protect the ones they love. If you believe that a good father will always stand up for what's right, leave a comment saying, "I believe in a father's love and justice."